As the new 2025 Monster Manual states, every monster is a font of adventure. GameMasters here, and we've got the new 2025 Monster Manual in hand. And in a previous live stream, we did our first look, and I'll link to that a little bit later in this video, but among the first elements in this new book is a section called How to Use a Monster. It spans from page 5 to page 9, but in spite of it just being a few pages, it is packed with great information, and that is the topic of today's video. Before we jump too far into it though, please note that the review copies that everyone has been sent came with a fairly strict set of rules. As I interpret them, I am not allowed to actually show anything at all from inside the book itself. I can talk about it, but I cannot actually show anything. Now, I have reached out to WotC for a better clarification because this is a major change from the past two books, the 2024 Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide. But this new guideline specifically states that reviewers are not to create, upload, or distribute any captured images or PDF versions of any material provided, which means to me that anything I put on camera is considered a captured image, and by you watching, well, that's technically me distributing. I am free, however, to show images that WotC has previously published, so I'll use those as examples where appropriate when talking about the Monster Manual. I'll try to be as descriptive as I can because I still ultimately want to bring this information to you so that you can decide if it's a good fit for you and your gaming table. With that, let's check out the intro and see what all is inside this 2025 Monster Manual. In the intro of the Monster Manual, we are provided with a sample monster stat block of a vampire familiar. WotC has distributed this stat block previously, so I'm good to show that. So I'll pop that here up on screen for you to take a look at and reference. But the Monster Manual then goes on to explain the different parts of that stat block. Each stat block is broken down into 8 sections. The name, general details, combat highlights, ability scores, other details, traits, actions, bonus actions, and reaction and legendary actions if that monster has those. I like this explanation, and while it may be somewhat second nature for veterans of the game, keep in mind that new players may not fully understand all of the points, so I can appreciate the detailed information that this particular section of the intro points out. The remaining pages define the various elements that can ultimately appear in any given stat block. For example, most of the monsters have a listing in their entry called Habitat, and this simple detail is going to provide to you where that monster would typically dwell. For example, a Grick can typically be found in forests or even in the Underdark. And as a quick aside, the back of the Monster Manual lists each monster grouped into its habitat as well, which makes it super easy to quickly throw together some bad guys into an exploration adventure that will all pretty much seamlessly fit together in that area. Want to have your adventurers explore a swamp? Well, there's 21 total monsters that typically dwell there, so that makes it super easy to put a swamp adventure together. Other elements that this introduction defines are terms like hit points and hit dice, and it provides a chart of hit dice by size, which breaks down into the monster's overall size category, ranging from tiny to gargantuan, and provides the corresponding hit die. For example, a small monster uses a d6 for its hit die, while a gargantuan-sized monster would use a d20. In several of the descriptions of the terms, it offers up to reference the Player's Handbook or the Dungeon Master's Guide for more full explanation of that specific term. The Monster Manual introduction goes on to detail out the monster's gear, citing that monsters are proficient with their equipment, and that if any given monster has gear that can be given away or gathered up after it's been defeated, then the stat block is going to list that equipment, or gear as they term it. Of course, it also explains that you can give monsters other items and gears should you want. And I really think that that is what is at the core of this introduction. It provides a decent amount of information on what you as the Dungeon Master can do to customize the monsters in this book to suit what's best for you at your table. I'm going to go into a little bit more of that a little bit later in the video, but the intro doesn't stop there. All of the rest of the terms that show up in the monster stat blocks are also listed, and it goes down the list. It explains senses, languages, what the challenge rating is, how to determine experience based on the challenge rating, how to derive at a monster's proficiency bonus, which is actually determined by its challenge rating, and it provides a chart to look that up as well. There's a small little blue box, notation box, that provides tips on how to run a monster and keep its actions and abilities consistent with its challenge rating. It explains to have it perform its special abilities as often as you can, and to have it perform its multi-attack should it have one, during any given turn in which it's not able to use one or more of its powerful abilities. It also cites to take advantage of its bonus actions, reactions, and legendary actions as often as you can. In essence, it flat out encourages the DM to make full use of the monster stat blocks so that they can be as deadly as possible. Of course, if you're wanting a less brutal scenario, you can just as easily scale things back should you need. But let's keep going. While the intro is just a few pages, there's no artwork to take up space, so we actually get a lot of really useful information. The intro then covers everything found in the monster's traits section, explaining the various parts like multi-attack, spell casting, things like that. Not all monsters have bonus actions, reactions, or even legendary actions, but if you do run across a listing that mentions those items, this introduction does a great job at detailing all of that out as well. Finally, the intro also explains limited usage. And this is where a monster can perform something, but only X amount of times per day. A couple of examples would be with the Ancient Gold Dragon, and I can show that because WotC's distributed that. But the Ancient Gold Dragon can cast once a day. It can cast the spells Flame Strike, Word of Recall, and Zone of Truth. What I am disappointed with, however, is that it's missing the full-on step-by-step guide in creating your own unique monster. While the information in this introduction is certainly descriptive enough for you to figure it out, I rather like the step-by-step guide that the Player's Handbook provided in creating a character. And while the Dungeon Master's Guide gives us tips on how to make step-by-step guides on creating magic items and stuff like that, it also goes into how to make minor alterations to monsters. I would have liked to have seen a guide in the monster manual on how to create a new monster from the ground up. To that end, if you'd like to see a video on that very topic, creating a monster in D&D from the ground up, give this video a thumbs up, and specifically let me know that down in the comments, and I'll put that video together for you. I've got several more videos that I want to make covering some of the specific monsters found within this book, and if you'd like to see that, I'd encourage you to subscribe so that you don't miss those. Overall, I am really liking what I'm seeing in this book, but I feel like I really kind of barely scratched the surface. Now, real quick, I need to thank my Patreon supporters and YouTube members, as their contributions to the channel have been beyond generous, and I am very humbled. And if anyone is interested in checking out on becoming a supporter of this channel, I'll leave a link down in the description. I also need to give a mighty thank you to all of you watching. Sharing your time each week with me and each video that I make means a great deal, and I also encourage everyone to join the GameMasters Discord. We get into some really fun discussions in there, and a lot of my video ideas come from that community as well. So if you would like to help shape the overall direction that this channel is going in the future, that is an awesome place to visit. What questions do you have regarding this new 2025 Monster Manual for Dungeons & Dragons? Is there a specific monster that you'd like to know a little bit more about? Is there any specific abilities or reactions that you're curious to find out about? Or do you just have any general questions regarding any of the monster descriptions? Let me know what you've got down in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them in a future video. Be sure to check out this live stream that we did covering our first look at what all is in the Monster Manual. I tried to give it a fun and humorous approach in spite of the restrictions that I'm under. Remember, thumbs up, subscribe, comment below, and until next our paths cross, may you discover that copper dragons evidently like to babysit.